Hello everyone, my name is Chang and I'm from Northern Trent University. Today I'm going to talk to you about ecological attunement as a mode of response to the current climate crisis. Before moving on to the discussion, I would like to give you an outline of the presentation. The first section draws on the urgencies that environmental campaigns and the general public have been pressing for as a mode of response to the current climate crisis, and will specifically address the responses from green technology and sustainable businesses, and then the responses from each individual under this pressure. This will serve as the backbone for the second section, which focuses on attunement as a mode of response to the climate breakdown. To explore this, I look at the theoretical responses from scholars including Timothy Morton, Donna Haraway and Anna Singh, and the creative responses from writer Jeff Amir and his Bond series. Let's move on to the first section. It's evident that we need green technology to save the planet. Green technology such as renewable energy that would dig up million-year fossil buried under the ground, and machines that could collect tons of rubbish in the sea every year. But there are a few serious problems with the ways in which green technology is adopted. Under the pressure to go green, and for the purpose of easing public concern, we see evidence of solar panels and wind turbines, for example, being installed with tons of trees being cut down to make room for them, and thousands of birds being killed by concentrated heat from solar panels, or by flying into wind turbines because wind turbines are installed on the routes that they migrate. Another example comes from car companies that promote environmentally friendly electric cars, which are, at the end of the day, built with Earth resources and which contribute to killing wildlife every day. Another point I would like to make is about sustainable businesses. Similarly to green technology, we do indeed need these sustainable businesses to save the planet, because Earth resources can then be used more responsibly. But there are also a few serious problems with this. For example, biodegradable plastic, an alternative to single-use packaging made of plastic, such as paper bag and wooden cutleries, are great. But consumers who are unfamiliar with categories like biodegradable plastic and compostable plastic can cause them to recycle rubbish incorrectly and reduce packaging recyclability. Meanwhile, paper bags and wooden cutleries can cause higher carbon emissions. So companies that are under pressure to develop their own policies around plastic to appeal to customers could end up making environmental problems worse, and will end up with new and improved versions of the same things that will lead us nowhere. So, how does pressure for urgent modern response to the current climate breakdown affect each individual? Here I am introducing 3 consequences in which this modern response affects us. The first is climate change denial. Given endless media reports about the escalating rate of climate change denial is a consequence not only of receiving false and mixed information from the media, but also of receiving information that causes uncomfortable and overwhelming emotion. The second consequence is climate change ignorance, which theorist Donna Haraway identifies as a comic faith in techno fixes. Believing that each small individual cannot do anything, and only grand projects involving technology and science can, we become ignorant of what's going on and shift the responsibility to those whom we think have the right tools to save us. But as we've already seen in the previous slide, green technology and sustainable businesses will go nowhere if they just carry on with the same ethos of the status quo. The last consequence is climate change paralysis, which also comes from the feeling of being overwhelmed with the emergency we feel when we hear so much about climate change facts. Haraway sees this as a game over attitude, the idea that it's too late to do anything, so let's just give up and do nothing. And in response to all of this, Haraway emphasises that there is a fine line between acknowledging the extent and seriousness of the troubles and succumbing to abstract futurism and its effects of sublime despair and its politics of sublime indifference. Having outlined the negative consequences of the urgent modern response to the current climate crisis, I would now like to analyse the idea of attunement as a more appropriate and helpful way of tackling this crisis. And this mode had to start with changing the very way in which we think, live, and coexist with non-humans, both animate and inanimate. So the first related theoretical response I'm going to explore is from philosopher Timothy Morton. Morton asserts that we don't have to be ecological because we are already ecological. This assertion stems from the fact that, as he puts it, you are already a symbiotic being, entangled with other symbiotic beings. This is certainly true. If we look around, it's the air we breathe, a bird singing where we live, and even the bacteria in our stomach, which helps digest our food. We see evidence of the non-human, the ecological existing both inside and outside us. In order to make this thinking possible, the thinking that we are already ecological, always already live and coexist with non-humans, Morton plays with the idea of making toys. He argues that we all make toys. Toys world, prototype, form to think with in our heads, on paper, in wood and plastic. And because of the diversity of beings around us, and because of the current climate crisis in which humans continue damaging Earth and extracting all of its resources, Morton emphasizes that it's a time to think of and make many toy structures that allow many non-human life forms to live and coexist with us. The one-size-fits-all politics of the present, in which human is at the centre ruling all other life forms, is out of date. Similar to Morton, Haraway also stresses the importance of thinking as a way of turning to the earth on which all beings live. And for her, this is how we should tackle the climate crisis. As she argues here, we need to think beyond inherited categories and capacities, such as the human and non-human divide that was proven utterly invalid in the previous slide. And we need to do so in homely and concrete ways. That is to say, rather than relying on grand technological projects, Haraway emphasizes the significance of small individual and local responses to the climate crisis. She asks us to make kin as odd kin, that is, not just with humans, but also with what she calls critters, which refer to both human and non-human life forms. And from here, to learn to stay with the trouble of living and dying on a damaged earth. In light of this, Haraway asks us to see the current ecological epoch not as the Anthropocene, but the Cthulhucene, one in which we should start using our ability to respond responsibly to the ecological crisis and make time with both humans and non-humans, and recognise our inherent interconnection with the latter. This idea of staying with the trouble of living and dying on a damaged earth is the focus of the 2017 book Arts of Living on Damaged Planet by Anna Singh and other collaborated authors. It is explored through images of shimmering landscapes, which describe the coming in and out of focus of multi-species knots with their cascading effects, which correspond with Haraway's idea of making odd kin. But another advantage of looking at shimmering landscapes is the curiosity this entails, which Singh and other authors believe to be the key to attuning to multi-species entanglement, complexity, and the shimmer all around us. When we are curious about the shimmering landscapes coming in and out of focus, we want to learn more about them, and this provides a condition for not only attuning and appreciating all life forms, but also making odd kin, as Haraway emphasizes. Thus, slowing down to listen to the world, to allow ourselves the chance to think things through, to appreciate and to love the lives around us, seem our only hope in a moment of crisis and urgency. This idea of slowing down to appreciate lives and moments of lives leads me to the last discussion of this presentation. I will now look at the creative response from Vandermeer's Bond series. The series consists of 3 novels: Born, The Strange Bird, and Dead Astronauts. These novels revolve around humans and non-humans' attempt to carve out lives in the ruined city, while being constantly threatened by other powerful forces called the Company and the Magician. In the first novel, Born, Vandermeer portrays Rachel, a climate refugee, as someone who, regardless of the difficult circumstances of the damaged environment in which she lives, and which is caused by the company and the magician extraction of Earth resources, still tries to struggle on, be her best self, and enjoy every moment of her life. This portrayal then shows Rachel's ability to stay with the trouble of living and dying on a damaged planet, instead of running away from it and declaring that it's too late, so as to ignore and deny everything. In the second novel, although the strange bird, which is a human-made bird, was captured by the old man, later her body was modified and tormented by the magician to be made into a cloak. This is not to say that she went with the magician through many battles and became an armor for her. The strange bird did not give up her beacon that was buried deep in her heart. Through many ups and downs, the strange bird at the end of the novel makes a nest with her lover and lives on. Similarly, in Dead Astronauts, Vladimir portrays 3 astronauts in their mission to end the company, the evil force that annihilates the city, as enjoying themselves, having fun, and playing games among the ruin. This once again points to Vladimir's message of trying to just focus on the moment, which he thinks is something that we've lost touch with, since we've been racing with the urgent murder response that causes the Earth to end up becoming paralysed and suffering from depression, not knowing what to do. Urgency therefore forestalls any moral response, or in other words, any ways of thinking out of the ecological mess in which we throw ourselves. So far, we have seen how the theoretical and creative responses from both theorists and writers demonstrate that attunement, a slowing down murder response that allows thinking things through and perceiving the world differently, is not only a helpful and effective, but also a healthy response to the current ecological crisis that we are facing. To conclude, I will summarise the key responses from the theorist and a writer that I have touched on throughout this presentation. Anna Singh and other collaborated authors encourage us to imagine the world differently, to listen beyond newspaper headlines, to hear those quiet stories about the Anthropocene whispered in small encounters. Haraway remarks that it matters what thoughts think thoughts, it matters what knowledges know knowledges, it matters what relations relate relations, it matters what worlds, and it matters what stories tell stories. Morton emphasises that the whole point is to find one's way back from the brink towards acceptance. And lastly, through his novels, Vladimir notes that doing something local is extremely important in pushing back against environmental destruction. And I also like to send out my own messages, because urgency as a way of responding to the current climate crisis stop us from thinking effectively and carefully how we could save the planet. And we saw in the beginning of this presentation how urgency and immediacy often result in new and improved versions of the status quo, and in some companies trying to make profit rather than tackling the ecological crisis. With this in mind, each of us should step back, slow down, appreciate the present, as well as attune to and take care of our surroundings. This is because, scaled up to the whole of the Earth and its inhabitants, these ways of living and coexisting with non-humans make an ample difference. Thank you for listening.